He was cursed to reap the wicked, doomed to never feel, until he met the girl with no soul, and for the first time, he hesitated. Welcome to a story that burns like memory and lingers like a whisper in the dark. If you love epic romantasy tales filled with forbidden magic, haunting emotions, and characters you'll never forget, you're in the right place. Before we dive deep into this immersive journey of love, curse, and redemption, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Every story we tell here is crafted to make you feel, wonder, and maybe remember a part of yourself long forgotten. Now close your eyes, take a deep breath, and let me tell you a story. The mist curled around the edges of the ruined chapel like fingers reaching from another world. The reaper stood motionless, his obsidian blade still humming from its last harvest. Before him, the girl did not scream, did not run, did not glow with the light of a departing soul. She simply stared, wide-eyed and silent, untouched by the death that had claimed dozens before her. Her skin was cold, but not lifeless. Her heart beat steady, though hollow in its rhythm. He felt nothing, and that was the problem. He always felt the moment a soul departed, the jolt, the scream, the fracture. But with her, there was only a void, the absence of presence, a silence that echoed inside him. "You were supposed to scream," he said, voice like gravel dragged across steel. "You were supposed to end." She tilted her head. "Maybe you're not as good at this as they say." The world seemed to hold its breath as they stood inches apart, death and something other. Her eyes were not fearless, but curious, almost amused. And beneath that amusement, something ancient stirred. Not a soul, but a shadow of one. Something fractured, forgotten. Then came the real question. If she had no soul, what had he failed to destroy? The blade should have reaped her, but it didn't. And now, he's breaking his only rule. He lets her live. The wind howled over the dead river, carrying the scent of moss, ash, and secrets. They walked side by side, a predator and the one prey he couldn't consume. Neither spoke for hours, but silence between them wasn't empty. It was tension strung tight like a bowstring, waiting to snap. She finally broke it. "They'll come for me now. You've marked me." His eyes didn't leave the horizon. "You were already marked. I just confirmed what they feared." In the dark hollows of forgotten towns, whispers began to spread. Of a reaper who hesitated. Of a girl no blade could touch. And in the ruins of an old cathedral, a death cult stirred from slumber. Their priests chanting in tongues not spoken in this age, their prophets claiming the hollow vessel had returned. But deeper still was the reaper's unrest. He hadn't felt warmth, pain, or confusion in centuries. Now, every step beside her made him feel less like a weapon and more like a man, and that terrified him. Late that night, she dreamed of drowning in mirrors, each reflection older than the last. When she awoke, her eyes glowed faintly for a heartbeat, and then it was gone. The cult has found her scent, and the reaper has begun to feel, which means the curse is cracking. Fog draped over the village of Brynvale like mourning cloth. Nothing lived here. Not truly. The trees leaned away from the path, their bark scarred with warnings carved by trembling hands. Yet as they entered, doors creaked open, not in welcome, but in recognition. The villagers stared with hollow reverence. Some wept, others bowed, and every pair of eyes fell not on the reaper, but on her. "You look just like her," whispered an elder with shaking fingers. "She burned here, centuries ago, screaming your name." The innkeeper refused to take coin. Children whispered stories of a soul thief born every 100 years. And in the chapel ruins, her reflection flickered, older, with eyes aflame. It wasn't her, but it was in her. That night, when spectral wolves burst from the fog, she didn't run. She faced them with bare hands, instinct guiding her. The reaper watched, ready to strike, but her touch alone dissolved the first beast in a scream of smoke. "She should not be able to do that," he muttered. "The village remembers her. The wolves fear her. And even the reaper begins to wonder, what exactly is she becoming?" The wind carried ash and memory. Inside a crumbling shrine, the Reaper found a mural buried beneath soot and vine. It showed him, unmistakably, standing beside a woman cloaked in shadows. Her face? Hers. He reached out, fingertips brushing the stone. Suddenly, a memory not his own flooded him. Fire, chains, a pyre. A woman screaming, not in fear, but defiance. "Split me," she had said. "Let me burn. But you'll never break us." He staggered back. "I've seen this, but I wasn't there." She knelt beside him, touching the flame-scored altar. "Maybe you were, just not all of you." Her voice trembled. "What if I'm not missing a soul? What if I am one?" Their eyes met, two pieces of a shattered mirror, and somewhere, beneath the chapel's foundation, something ancient stirred, as if her awakening echoed across the very bones of the world. She's not soulless. She's part of something larger, maybe even someone he once loved, and destroyed. Rain fell like knives through mist as they approached the hermit mage's tower, a crumbling spire perched on the edge of a screaming cliff. He had been the Reaper's only ally once, a man who could see threads of fate and cut them. Inside, the fire burned cold blue. The mage welcomed them with hollow eyes and too many smiles. So, the rumors were true. She lives. They drank tea laced with memory. The girl began to cough shadows. The Reaper's hand went to his blade. "You didn't come here for answers," he growled. "You came to take her." The mage's grin widened. "No, to extract her. What lies inside is worth more than you or I." Lightning split the tower open. In the chaos, the Reaper struck. Fast, brutal, final. The mage died laughing, and in the girl's sobs, he felt a grief not hers, but his. Memories he didn't know he had. Emotions he thought long dead. A piece of the puzzle is gone. But in killing his old friend, the Reaper chose emotion over duty, and something deep inside him has begun to unravel. The storm hadn't stopped since the mage died. Thunder cracked across the sky like a wounded god screaming. The Reaper didn't sleep. Couldn't. Each time he closed his eyes, he saw faces. Not hers. Theirs. He sat alone by the embers of their campfire, fingers trembling as if touched by cold that memory alone could bring. Faces rose from the smoke, souls he had reaped centuries ago. But now, their whispers were different. Softer. Almost familiar. One, in particular, echoed louder than the rest. A small voice calling him Father. He gripped his blade so tight his knuckles bled. "No, all of you. I buried you." But the girl was watching from the edge of the clearing, eyes wide. Not with fear, but recognition. "They're inside you," she said. "Not just the dead. Pieces of them. Pieces you never let go." She walked forward, slow, careful, and laid a hand on his shoulder. "Maybe that's what you really are. A mosaic of the souls you were cursed to destroy." And when her hand touched his skin, he saw her again. Not this girl, but another. Older, wiser, laughing under an autumn sun. A woman with her eyes. A soul he once loved. And severed. The souls inside him are not silent anymore. And one of them might have been the origin of her. The oracle's sanctum was carved into a mountain older than time. Its entrance bled golden mist, and the closer they got, the more the world bent. Sounds twisted backward, gravity shifted sideways, and words spoken didn't match the mouth that moved. Inside, the oracle waited, blindfolded, skin etched with constellations that moved. Her voice echoed not from her throat, but from the cracks in the stone. "She is not soulless," the oracle said. "She is what remains after a soul is torn." To see the truth, the girl had to offer blood, not as sacrifice, but as permission. A basin drank it like thirsting roots. Visions erupted, the forging of the Reaper, the splitting of a single ancient soul into two. Half became the weapon, half became a seed, scattered through bloodlines, hidden. "You are each the fracture of the other," said the oracle. "You were created not to destroy one another, but to decide what happens when death and absence collide." As the vision ended, the mountain groaned, a warning, for the gods had seen what they had seen, and now they were watching. They were never enemies. They were two halves of a forbidden soul, and now that truth has been revealed, someone, or something, wants them dead. They left the Oracle's mountain in silence, but the distance between them had changed. It wasn't physical, it was emotional. He had spent centuries running from connection. Now he feared what it would mean to fully remember. She too was shaken, not just by the truth, but by the implication. If I was made from what you destroyed, then who am I really? What choices are even mine? At night, she wept quietly, memories that weren't hers bleeding into her thoughts. A child's laughter, a mother's song, a man with dark eyes whispering, "Live, even if I do not." She fled before dawn, left no sound, no trace, only a single word carved into a tree trunk. Sorry. The Reaper found it at sunrise and felt something crack. Not his blade, not his body, but a weight in his chest he didn't remember placing there. And somewhere, beneath the growing storm clouds, he felt the ground shift, as if fate itself had moved. She's gone. He doesn't know where. And something is coming for her. Something old, patient, and very aware that the balance is breaking. The death cult had been waiting for this moment for centuries. In a cave carved beneath the roots of a dead god, they prepared the ritual. A dozen sacrificed, a soul machine forged from bone and forgotten runes, all to awaken the Forsaken, a creature made from stolen spirits, bound together into one monstrous will. They found her wandering the ruins of an ancient battlefield. They offered her answers. Completion. A soul to fill the emptiness. "You can become whole," whispered the high priest. "But wholeness has a price." She agreed, not out of desperation, but out of defiance. If the gods wanted her fragmented, she would become something they feared. The Reaper arrived too late. He tore through the cultists, but the ritual was complete. The creature rose, and she absorbed it, screaming as hundreds of voices fused into her body. For a heartbeat, the Reaper saw her silhouette shine like a sun, and then dim into shadow. She's no longer soulless, but the soul she carries isn't entirely hers, and something inside it is still awake. The wind died. Even the trees seemed to pull away. She stood in the clearing, glowing faintly, trembling as if the weight of centuries pressed down on her shoulders. Her eyes flickered between brown and gold, and something else entirely. Something not human. He approached, slow, blade at his side. "What did you do?" "I made a choice," she said. "To stop running, to feel everything." But the emotions were too much. Laughter, grief, rage, memories that weren't hers surging like tidal waves. She gripped her head, sobbing, screaming. And then, she turned on him. "This was your curse. Now it's mine too." He didn't raise his weapon. He didn't flinch when she screamed in his face. Instead, he stepped closer. "I never wanted you to carry my burden." Her knees gave out. He caught her. And in that moment, holding her, fractured, screaming, afraid, he realized the final truth. They had never been separate. He had been broken. She was what filled the cracks. She begs him to kill her. He refuses. And now, the gods themselves begin to descend, because two broken souls becoming one was never part of their design. The sky split open like torn parchment. From the wound in the heavens they came, not winged, not radiant, but terrible in their stillness. The gods did not speak. They didn't need to. Their presence alone bent the world. Gravity stuttered, wind died, time slowed. The Reaper dropped to one knee, not from reverence, from pain. Their very presence rejected him, like a creation out of control. She stood, shaking, eyes glowing with fractured light. The soul inside her pulsed like a dying star. The gods stared not at the Reaper, but at her. "Unmade," said one voice, ancient and layered with countless tones. "She is the flaw, the contradiction." Another replied, colder, "Then she must be ended. Again." The Reaper rose to his feet. "No," he said simply, and with that word, something ancient snapped. The blade on his back shattered, not from force, but from choice. He had been forged to obey. Now, he refused. Lightning rained down in spears of divine judgment. The forest burned in white fire. The Reaper shielded her with his body, taking the hit. Skin charred, bones cracked. He didn't scream. He remembered love, loss, the woman she once was. The girl collapsed to her knees beside him, eyes wide, blood on her lips, whispering, "You chose me." The gods have come to erase her, but the Reaper has broken his bond. And now, they are both anomalies in a world that demands order. The gods offered no mercy, only ultimatum. "Surrender the fragment," they said, "and we will unmake your pain." But pain had made them both, molded them, bonded them, and they would not give it up now. So the Reaper made the only choice left. He turned to her, not as a weapon, but as a partner. She placed her hand on his chest, over the cracked ribs, over the broken blade inside him. "If I give you my soul, not to take, but to share, will it kill us both?" He didn't answer with words, only silence. And in that silence the pact was formed, not with magic, but intention. The fusion began slow, agonizing. Their energies, opposite, fractured, tried to reject one another. But through the chaos, the echoes of the woman she once was, and the man he used to be, held them together. Flames licked the air around them, but not from destruction, from creation. Around them, reality trembled. A new force, never meant to exist, awakened. Soulfire. Magic born not of gods or curses, but of mutual defiance, of shared grief and fragile hope. As the gods prepared their final strike, the fusion completed. The Reaper's eyes turned silver, hers, midnight, and their shadows stretched and merged behind them, into something neither human nor divine. They are no longer what they were, and neither are the gods ready for what they've become. The first strike came like thunder made flesh. A god descended, swinging a weapon made from starlight and silence. The fused pair, Reaper and Hollow Soul, moved in tandem, every motion echoing the other. Her hands weaved magic shaped like memory. His fist shattered divine armor. The earth cracked, the sky bled. Each blow wasn't just physical. Every hit awakened a new truth. With each clash, she remembered more. Fragments of a life extinguished by flame. A lover. A betrayal. A child that never drew breath. She wept between breaths, her sorrow fueling her strikes. The Reaper fought with focus that bordered on madness. Not to kill, but to liberate. He saw now that the gods weren't protectors. They were jailers. The other gods joined the battle. 3 against 2. Immortal will against broken creation. But Soulfire twisted the rules. It responded to emotion, grief, love, fear, and burned hotter than any divine flame. The Reaper grabbed one god by the throat and ripped its name from its body. The god dissolved, screaming into silence. But power has a cost. Each spell she cast fractured her body further. Each soul within her screamed to be heard. She was becoming a vessel too full to contain its fire. And still, she fought. They can win. But at what price? The more she channels the soul fire, the more she becomes something else. Something even the gods fear. They stood among ruins, smoke thick in the lungs, ash clinging to blood-soaked skin. 2 gods remained. The oldest, the ones who made the Reaper long ago. They did not fight with fists. They fought with memory, with temptation. One stepped forward, serene, and spoke with her mother's voice. "Return to us, child. We will give you your soul, whole, pure, untouched." The other turned to the Reaper, voice laced with shadowed guilt. "You were made to protect balance. This is chaos." They offered him peace, release, an end to pain, to guilt. All he had to do was walk away. He looked at her, trembling, exhausted, barely holding together the power inside her. She looked back, eyes filled not with plea, but with trust. She wasn't asking to be saved. She was choosing him to stand beside her. Again, he turned to the gods. "I was made to reap what you feared. Now I see why." Together, they unleashed the final surge of soul fire, not to kill, but to erase the gods' hold on the world. A cleansing flame, not revenge, redemption. The gods are breaking, but so is she. The soul inside her is too powerful. If it isn't contained, She will burn everything, including him. The battlefield was silent, the gods gone, dissolved into myth and memory. But victory had a price. She stood alone, soul fire flickering uncontrollably across her skin. Her voice shook. I can't hold it anymore. I feel them, all of them. They're screaming, and I can't hear myself anymore. The Reaper took a step forward. Let me help you. She shook her head, tears streaming. If you come closer, I'll take you too. I'll burn you out. But he didn't stop. He walked through the flame, through the storm of screaming souls. He took her face in both hands, forehead to forehead. Then burn me, if that's the price. And with those words, the words he had never spoken in 1,000 lifetimes, she remembered everything. Who she was, who he was, what they had lost, and what they had become. She kissed him. The soul fire surged, and then collapsed inward. A blinding light, silence, stillness. When it cleared, she was gone. So was the fire. The Reaper fell to his knees in the ashes of a new world. She chose not to destroy. She chose to save him. But in doing so, she vanished. Or did she? Smoke curled like ghosts around the broken stones. The battlefield was quiet now. No gods, no light. Only the Reaper, alone on his knees, his hands buried in the earth where she had stood. The fire was gone. The souls, silent. He felt cold, not in skin, but in soul. A space where something should be. Someone. But in the silence, something stirred. Not outside, but within. A memory. A whisper. Her voice. Live, even if I do not. It wasn't an echo. It was a promise. One he'd made long before he remembered it. He rose, slowly, painfully. No blade on his back, no curse in his blood. Only grief, and something new. A fragment of light pulsed beneath his ribs, faint but steady. A gift, a seed, a part of her. Across the sky, the world began to shift. The divine veil was torn. Mortals began to dream again. Not just of gods, but of freedom. Those once cursed felt the chains fall. Magic twisted into new forms. The cost had been high, but the world was waking into something different, something earned. And in the wind, her voice again, softer this time. I'm not gone, just waiting. Years passed. The stories changed. They called him a myth, the man who walked out of flame. Some say he wanders still, walking the edges of forgotten realms, chasing the shimmer of a voice only he can hear. He never stops, never rests, because somewhere, between memory and magic, she exists, not gone, not lost, just out of reach. He speaks to her sometimes, beneath old trees, beside silent rivers, into the smoke of his fire. He tells her of the world she's changed, of people who remember without knowing why, of children born with fire in their veins and songs that make stones weep. He waits, not for her return, but for the day they become whole again. And if you listen closely, in the quiet between breaths, you can still hear her whisper, not the end.